Welcome to this special segment of Nikon Live. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to talk to you today about the Nikon Z series mirrorless cameras that just came out, the Z7 and Z6, along with the Nikkor Z lenses and the compatibility to the F-mount lenses. These are exciting times, and we are really excited to bring this new technology to the market. My name is Mike Corrado. I've been working with Nikon for 36 years, and I can tell you in my history in this company, it's never been this fun, never been this great. We have a great panel of photographers, Nikon ambassadors, and people within Nikon, starting with Jerry Guiones, who is a wedding, portrait, and boudoir photographer out of Las Vegas, Nevada. We had some fun times in Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
And we've got the amazing Dixie Dixon, who is a director and filmmaker and fashion photographer out of Fort Worth, Texas. We also worked together on this project. And we have Mark Soares, who is the senior marketing manager, the man that's in charge of marketing for Nikon, who has so much insight to this camera system. And we want to be able to answer many of the questions you may have, but talk about these amazing tools for photographers that have really launched us into the next 100 years of Nikon's career. This is historical, to say the least. So, Mark, we have been saying things together for the last several months while we're talking about this camera, but two words that come to mind are mirrorless reinvented. That's a pretty bold statement to make. Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, before I go into that, I just want to make a note that, while I am in marketing, I'm also a photographer. Right?
Yeah.
I also use, and a lot of people at Nikon use the product, of course.
Absolutely.
Their passion drives them to work there, which is great. And when we're about to launch a product, we get really excited. We see the specs first, and then we pick up the product, and that's when we know we have something really, really special. And mirrorless reinvented is, I think, is a perfect way to describe these products, because if you can imagine taking a product like the D850, right? A lot of people would call the perfect DSLR, and it certainly is a great product, and we've received a few awards for that. Take that kind of design philosophy, the ergonomics, the comfortable ergonomics, and that Nikon feel. You know what I mean? There's something about a Nikon camera when you pick it up and you feel like you're home. And that's the nuances that the engineers are so conscious of. The button layout, the user interface. Things as, some people might miss this, but actually when we put this camera in photographers' hands, even this little thumb rest here, these are things that our engineers think of. And that's what gives a Nikon camera that really solid, very intuitive feel that the photographers really, really love. And you pair that with an incredible new mount, right? So this is one thing that we were really kind of, we certainly spoke to the engineers about because we wanted to learn, why did we kind of change the mount, right? What makes it so special? And they were quick to point out, well, first, it is better. And of course, I want to know why it's better. So they explained that 55 millimeter inner mount diameter and the 16 millimeter flange distance, optically, from an optical engineering standpoint, it will deliver the ultimate image quality on a full frame sensor. Mm-hmm. And what I learned about that was that when you get the ability to put larger elements, mm-hmm. right, closer to the sensor, you end up completely change the game for resolution in the periphery of the sensor and the center. So those elements combined, I think, truly embody the mirrorless reinvented. You combine the compatibility with existing Nikkor via the optional adapter that we have, which is awesome, and you combine that design philosophy mm-hmm. with this powerful, really powerful new mount that delivers resolution like I have never seen before.
Right.
And I think you have
engineering.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Nikon Dna, as our engineers
this
call it.
Wasn't just something they came up with overnight. I mean, many engineers got into a room and calculated, every little thing that has to happen to not only make the most advanced system on the market today, but to be able to be backward compatible with lenses, which is a critical thing to you guys as photographers, because I know you have lenses, F-mount Nikkor lenses, that are so important to you. But I mean, to me, I just keep getting blown away, because every time I pick up the camera, we've got the EVF that's built with Nikkor optics. We have vibration reduction built in. We have some amazing features built in that we didn't have. But at the same time, the award-winning D850 is built into this as well, for the most part, right, Mark?
Yeah, you end up with, well, we have two cameras, the Z7 and Z6.
Right.
Both very powerful. They're like twins, really, because they look the same, and they're both very well equipped. The EVF is really remarkable, and there's another little design cue that our engineers again think of. You see how it protrudes out, and when we put it in photographers' hands, they were very quick to point out, wow, that's really comfortable. My nose is not going like this, I'm not pressing the glass. And it's just a more comfortable design, but the optics in it, I was really amazed when we were having discussions with the head of development, and we asked him, what is the one thing, just out of curiosity, like what do you find is the best thing about this whole system? And he quickly just said the EVF is amazing.
Absolutely.
And I was a little taken back because at that time I had not picked up the product.
Right.
I had seen all the specs, and I knew there was a knocked lens. I mean, that's pretty exciting. It's hard to beat that. Right. You have a new mount, you have two bodies. They're really fast and really powerful. And so to hone in on the EVF was surprising to me, but then I looked through it. And it is absolutely beautiful to look through this EVF, and the optics are quite spectacular in it.
Yeah, and I think to me, ultimate image quality is what I've heard time and time again, and I'm seeing that through the things that I'm photographing, but I would love to turn to you guys. And you know, we came to you and we had a fun moment where myself and my colleague Brian got on the phone with you and we said, we need to talk to you, but there's only one thing that can happen. You can't ask any questions, right? I mean, I'm sure you love questions like that, but we need to know when you're available, we need you to come to New York, and we need to show you something. That's all you got. And Jerry, what did you ask?
I asked, is it a mirrorless?
And what did you hear?
And nothing. I said, well, cough once if it's mirrorless. And there was no coughing. I made a little sound, but I'm like, I don't know. So I kind of figured, but I got really, really excited because I haven't experienced this kind of technology myself. Right. And I couldn't wait to get to New York.
We had some great moments in Vegas studying the camera and discovering things on the camera. I thought that to me was like we had so many wow moments about, oh my God, did you see that? Or how many times we came together and said, hey, I found this. Oh, wait a minute, I found it first.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience. So that first impression, you come to New York and we reveal the camera to you.
Sure.
What are your first thoughts?
Well, I was a bit disconcerted. I'm like, this might be too small for my hand. I don't know if it's going to be comfortable. But as soon as I picked it up, Nikon, it feels like a Nikon. And I know many of us have said that this week. It's been amazing how many times it's been said, and it fits in your hand perfectly. And to be able to just hold it and look through the viewfinder, I'm like, I'm looking at a glorified TV in here, and that'll offend the engineers.
Finder, right?
But then when I looked at it, it took me 5 minutes to get used to it, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing real life.
Sure.
I didn't feel like there was any difference. So for having shot 25 years professionally, I thought that would take a while to get used to. It didn't take long at all.
Right.
And then when I started shooting with it, I mean, I haven't experienced a pro mirrorless DSLR. So for me to actually put my eye to the camera, right, I could program these two function buttons.
Right.
So let's just go nice and close here.
Customizability of this camera is big.
It's incredible. So to be able to, you got two function buttons there. So what I basically ended up doing was, as you know, that top one, I accessed my menu. And my menu, I put all my shortcuts.
Right.
Changing the crop factor, so 1:1. Now there's 16:9 for a cinematic perspective.
Right.
Changing to black and white. Being able to actually add picture styles like sepia.
So just quick access to everything.
Quick access.
Where you don't have to pull your eye away from the viewfinder.
So in one action, I can put my eye to the camera, I can actually access my menu, change those things, take a photograph, press play with this bottom function button, zoom up to it with the AF on button, all without taking my eye away from the camera. It's made me faster and quick, like more efficient.
Totally agree. I had that same experience
It's
as
incredible.
I evolved with this camera.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, very quickly, when we did get to real shooting in Vegas, how quickly did you adapt to the camera?
Well, look, it felt a little bit different. I got to admit, but about 20 minutes, I felt at home.
20 minutes is not bad.
20 minutes, I was done. And what I did is that you asked us ambassadors give us 5 photographs, and I said no.
Sorry to limit you.
5 photographs. I mean,
we knew the deadlines were very short on this.
As a wedding portrait fashion photographer, as a wedding photographer, I would do that in 5 minutes, like or in the first minute. And I'm like, I want to experience this in different genres: strobe, speed light, daylight, tungsten.
You put it to a test.
I put it to a test. I ended up giving you 30 of my favorites among 300-400 that I loved.
We did love them all. But
and it was incredible.
So Dixie, same thing. You come to New York. We have an unboxing situation set up for you where we record it in video for all of you. It was amazing how you responded. What was your first thought?
It was incredible. You know, I have been in love with the D850, and I remember, you know, looking at the specs and thinking, how could you possibly get better than the D850? And when I picked it up, I immediately, like you said, it felt like a Nikon. It almost felt liberating because it's such a small form factor, you know, I end up getting a lot of back pain when I'm traveling to different locations, you know, climbing down cliffs to get that perfect shot.
Yes, you do. You work hard for 14-hour days. I experienced that.
Yes, long, long days. So for me, it was a really liberating experience getting to see the camera and seeing, for me, looking at how when you change ISO, shutter speed, aperture, how you can instantly see it like in the viewfinder. So you can almost like finalize your shot before you even take an image.
That's a big thing.
It's huge, because I ended up, sometimes when I'll take test shots trying to get that exposure, you know, spot on, some of the best shots will end up being the test shots and they're not perfectly in camera. Well, this camera, you can finalize everything before you even take the image. And I think that's extremely powerful.
It takes the guesswork out. So even inexperienced photographers will look in the camera and be able to understand exposure. Because if you photographed a pale-skinned bride wearing a white dress on a white wall, well, you'll know that it'll underexpose. You can see it live. It's fantastic.
And I know, you know, we'll get deeper into this, but I think you were fascinated by picture controls and sepia controls and some of the new picture controls that are available on the camera. And again, I'll say this to you guys, the first experience of sitting down for no less than 4 hours but across from a desk and going through every setting and control and discovering things, I had never done that before. And my menu and things like that were never part of my repertoire in setting up the camera, but with this electronic viewfinder, it is a must for me. So there's so many things that have changed. So at this point, I'd like to talk a little bit about your shoots and your creative, and we're going to show some pictures to the people viewing. And just take us through that journey. And as you go through, try to highlight your creative, but at the same time, what about the camera stood out to you?
Sure, no problem. So I had arranged several shoots, so 7 shoots in 10 days. And the first shot we're going to basically show you right now, so if you have a look at the screen, was actually the makeup artist's husband, who I'd met before, but I'd seen him in a completely different light. This guy's from the Game of Thrones. This guy is a Viking. And to be able to focus, not have to focus, recompose and shoot was very liberating for me. I often have the point of interest in extreme vertical, left, right and bottom. So to be able to actually pinpoint focus, so just in case you guys at home don't know, there's a pinpoint focus where you can make the actual focus point smaller, and to be able to focus on his eyeball and miss his eyelash or on the lid of his eye and not have to recompose and shoot was incredible. Also, I put this on the sepia setting. The cool thing about the sepia setting is it actually makes it sepia, but I would call it more of a desaturated bronze tone.
Right, because it retains certain colors within the spectrum.
Retains the color. And what you're seeing here is actually a result of putting 2 flags on either side of him, giving an in-camera vignette. But if you look at the plane of focus on his eyeball, right down to the hairs on his chinny chin chin, it's amazing. Look, if you look this close, I mean, going at 100%,
it's insane.
It's insane. I mean, you can
it's
see
funny.
what I'm wearing.
I zoom in now to 200% because I can.
Yes.
It's that sharp. It's that detailed.
It's so good.
Mark, real quick, I mean, before we move forward, we have a new autofocus system, a hybrid autofocus system in the camera. Can you explain that real quick? Because Jerry just mentioned Pinpoint, which is a brand new feature to our cameras, works with contrast detect. But talk a little bit about PDAF.
So the first thing, and it's a great feature, is we actually have PDAF built into the sensor. So that's phase detect autofocus. The Z7 has 493 AF points, and they cover 90%. I mean, it's a huge,
that's
huge
remarkable.
field. Yeah. So your subject can be anywhere, and you're really gonna catch it. The Z6 has 273 AF points, but it's still 90% coverage. And again, that's vertical and horizontal, and that becomes really, really useful for not just stills, but for video as well, which I know we'll discuss a little bit later as well. But that AF system is really revolutionary because of not just because it's really snappy, but also because it works with the new lenses. These new lenses that we've announced, one of the remarkable things, I know I'm going to go a little bit deep into the engineering side because I really love that stuff too.
Okay, we enjoy that too.
and I just learned so much sitting next to the optical engineer, which I'm fortunate to sit next to. And he drew a bunch of diagrams, and he explained that when you have a wider mount, you have more room for a more powerful actuator. Right. A more powerful actuator can just move the elements faster and smoother, and it's quieter, and it's just what you see when you're autofocusing through the system, that snappy focus. Right. It's because of that. It's a combination of all those elements. So it's a great development.
And you've got a beautiful backside illuminated sensor, which is taking light in, gathering more light. So not only is it great for low light performance, high ISO, but it's so fast and accurate with autofocus. It's insane. So let's go back to your pictures, Jerry. And
Sure. And so, by the way, that very first photograph was photographed with the 105 macro, and that worked seamlessly with the adapter,
Right.
Which I actually love. So let's go to this.
I have to say this too to the audience. I got to witness Jerry's genius here. That was just a very simple setting by a window with a couple of flags on both sides of the face. And to watch that genius in action, that is beautiful. So
Thank you.
Sorry,
so
I had
much.
to say that.
No, thank you. So the next photograph that we're looking at right now was with the 35 1.8, and I wanted to test the ISO and see if there was going to be any issue. Even though this is a pre-production model, this was at 4000 ISO,
Insane.
35 millimeter, 2.8. We had the SB5000, which works seamlessly now without the adapter. So we've got the WRR10 with the flash on the outside of the house, and then basically firing right into her face, and we've got that beautiful reflection. And if you look at the detail there,
That's
I'm not sure if they're getting it in there, but it's so much fun to be able to, I guess, have a camera that completes my vision.
Right.
So my artistry, my background, my years of experience, along with 101 years of experience, equals art.
And the beauty of this system and the way the engineers have designed this, it's not breaking the laws of physics, but it's breaking the way we think about things, because it's changing the way we're moving light within the system.
That's right.
And you were able to use the 35-1.8 at f1.8.
Yes.
Normally it would be said, stop down a couple of stops to get to the sharpest point, but you're getting great edge-to-edge sharpness at 1.8.
I've never been so confident in photographing at 1.4 as well.
Right.
So even my 105 1.4,
Right.
my 85 1.4, many of us, I've asked fellow ambassadors, do you know how to focus it better?
Yeah.
Like, am I missing something? Even though I've been shooting for so long, but you know, to grab that focus, what's the perfect system, recipe? Now I can pinpoint the focus on the eyeball, and I've got edge-to-edge sharpness. I've got built-in vibration reduction, which will make my 105 more secure, my 85 more secure. That's pretty cool.
I want to introduce Dixie to this, because we talked about this too, and using your 85-1.4 and your 105-1.4, and how you felt like you had to overshoot a little bit just in case you moved a little bit off.
Absolutely.
But you didn't do that with this system during your shoot that we'll talk more about in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, normally when I shoot at 1.4 or 1.8, I tend to, like you said, overshoot just in case, because there's a little bit of user error with this. But with this particular camera, I was scrolling back through all of the images that I shot, you know, thousands for this particular project, and I honestly didn't see one that was out of focus. My mind was blown.
So Mark, you wanted to...
Yeah, a couple of things. So, and I know I love the optics. I have to say.
I've seen your excitement about this every day in the office, I know.
And I'm a camera guy at heart. You know what I mean? Like I really love the equipment. So when we heard about the new mount, again, this is on paper.
Yes, right.
And many people can attest this. I grilled the engineers asking, tell me exactly why. Because what they were showing me and the product managers was remarkable. I have never seen sharpness wide open like I've seen in these lenses.
Yeah.
It is a totally different level.
It's a new experience.
Until you see it and print it out in front of you, you won't believe it.
Yep.
But this new mount is absolutely remarkable. Not just because it delivers that level of quality, but also you can work seamlessly with a huge amount of lenses. Over 90 lenses are fully compatible.
The FTZ adapter is like the holy grail. I mean, it takes on the past, works with the present, and certainly has a future.
Yeah, yeah. It's unbelievable that you have this level of flexibility. You can use your 105, and you have VR. You have 5 stops of VR built into the body. So I know that I've heard it personally from a lot of users who they come, for some reason they always find me and they always ask me for 14 to 24 VR.
Yes,
and I totally
that's
get
a common question.
Yeah.
105, yep.
So you can use this and you gain 5 stops of VR. It's a really, really nice addition to the system.
So Jerry, let's talk about the next shot.
Sure. So this one was only photographed a couple of nights ago, and I basically had a lot of confidence being able to photograph multi-exposure, and this is the cool thing. So you photograph a multiple exposure, you are able to photograph the very base foundation shot, which of course was the city. So what I ended up doing when I was photographing, I photographed the cityscape upside down with a lot of negative space, so I took that.
It's insane.
Then what I did was I chose that as my foundation photograph. Then it has a ghosting effect.
Right,
like
that's new
you can
to
see
our
it
system.
transparent. It's almost you can see where the photograph is and perfectly align it so I could actually frame them in the cityscape there. And to be able to get that out of camera with nothing done to it was so predictably fun and good that I know that I'll do it more. And this is what freaks out couples, that you can do that stuff on the day, show it off on the night. I mean, it's mind-blowing.
And again, I'll tell you guys out there viewing, I've seen him do this. He does this within seconds and comes up with these ways of approaching, just a quick, simple solution to the shot. What's next up? Oh,
Actually, no, but I was watching you work because I noticed a difference in how you were using the camera, which was you never took the camera away from you. Like, it was always to your eye. It was tethered to the screen, to a big screen. And everyone is kind of watching how you compose, which is really cool because you get to see how your mind works. So it was awesome to see this totally different kind of approach. Right. And you seemed really comfortable with that. I don't know if it was comfortable for you, but it seemed like you were never taking the camera away from you.
I'd like to ask you, did it still feel like a Nikon when you went upside down?
Well, look, this suits me perfectly because I'm very obsessive. So for me, I'm obsessed with the approach now that I can change my white balance, my crop factor, anything in camera, be able to photograph it and press play, all whilst my eye is there. And I ended up photographing 85 headshots that night, and to be able to get them in one shot. Normally I take 3 or 4 shots, take one, have a look, I'm happy, I'm done. So,
and I would think losing connection with your subjects is a really bad thing when you have to break away and look at the back of the camera.
Well, you want them to maintain their expression. So if I put the camera down, they'll relax. But being able to do this quickly, they'll maintain whatever I want, and all of a sudden it works.
Yeah.
So
I believe you have another shot that
yeah,
you want
this
to
is
talk
my
and share
favorite.
about?
This is my favorite. Gorgeous girl, Claire. She's this beautiful 16-year-old. She's going to hate me. I think she's watching this right now, by the way. But this was the first shot after my test series, and as soon as I saw her, stunning girl, I pictured her as a young queen, and this was her giving an evil look to her mother because her mother was trying to, I think, point out to her that something was wrong or something.
I think she wasn't getting a dog, if I remember correctly.
But this was the shot, and it worked seamlessly also using modeling lamps while I was photographing with strobes. And this was one of many that I loved, but that was certainly a highlight. And the reaction to her shots and everything, which I'll share in the upcoming weeks, was just breathtaking.
And I seem to remember you shot this with the 7200.
Yes.
F-mount Nikkor.
Correct.
What do you feel about the quality?
Look, you can zoom up to that photograph and you can go to 100%, 200%. You could count the veins in her eyeball. Now, not that you would want to do that, but
No.
I'm saying is this gives us so many choices to be able to have. I mean, I was involved in the D850 campaign last year, so to have a medium format quality in this small form factor, like compared to the 850, which is probably around about this size, is incredible. So it's opened up a whole new world. So for me, the way I see using this system is I will use the Z6 as my workhorse for weddings because it'll give me high ISO quality, even better than the Z7. And the Z7 will be my hero shot camera.
Right.
As much as I love my D5 and the 850, Z6, Z7 is going to be my system.
Yeah, I think that there's several ways that photographers are going to approach this. It's either going to be alongside in the bag with the D850 or D5, or it's going to be something that you completely switch to. Maybe you use both. Maybe you'll stay with DSLR.
I'm all in, baby.
The beauty of all this, Mark, is we have options, and that's pretty unprecedented in any company right now. That we have options for mirrorless, we have options for DSLR, we have options for older Nikkor and current Nikkor, and
these are designed to live in the ecosystem. I mean, that's why the compatibility is there. You have the same cards, you have the same batteries, your accessories work. You know, it's part of the bigger Nikon system. It has what our engineers refer to as the Nikon Dna.
Right.
And I keep going back to the little point in time where we're privileged that we get to pick up the prototype.
Yeah, we run into a little office, we close the doors,
and
block
it's
off the
really
windows.
cool because I always feel that until you pick it up, you don't know.
That's absolutely true.
It's specs on a sheet, but when you pick it up, this thing feels and behaves like a Nikon. You can feel the durability. By the way, weather
sealing.
sealed.
I was going to say that
weather
immediately
sealed
brings
to the
up
same
weather sealing
degree
and how it performs outdoors.
And it's smaller and lighter. I mean, it's a really nice package. I'm actually showing you here with the 500 PF, which is remarkable in and
It's a
of itself.
500. I thought it was a 7200.
It's about the same size as the 7200, half the size of the existing 500. But this is the kind of portability that you get, and this is using the adapter. Which, by the way, when you use the adapter, I don't know about you, but I almost immediately forgot that it was there.
Yeah.
Because it just kind of integrates
It
into the
fits
body and
perfectly.
Yeah.
and
Quick
firm.
comment too about the adapter, if you just hand it to me there. Of
course.
So when I I love using
my adapter.
the 70-200 with, and it has a tripod mount on it.
Right.
But now with all our other lenses that don't have a tripod mount, it's always lens heavy when you put it on a tripod or a monopod.
Sure.
Now you put it in there, it now gives you the center of gravity, which makes it so much easier. So it's been a lifesaver for me. I love it.
So I want to now move towards Dixie. And so my journey went from Bend, Oregon to Las Vegas to Fort Worth, Texas, then to LA. But I stopped in Texas. And by the way, it averaged probably 105 degrees at every stop. And you guys love to shoot outdoors in 105-degree temperature. I don't know why. But Dixie, now you picked up the camera for the first time in a real world situation.
Yes.
Talk to me.
Absolutely.
Talk to us, talk to everybody about that.
Yeah, it was such a dream project. And with this type of project, you definitely want to showcase and test out the capabilities of the camera.
Absolutely.
So in lots of different scenarios, essentially. So I wanted to test it out in studio using natural light and strobe. I wanted to test it out on location, like you said, in 110-degree weather.
Thank you very much for that. I
It
appreciate it.
definitely did
14-hour
really
day,
great.
that was great.
Yes, and it was pretty amazing to me in a 14-hour day how many shots you get on one battery alone.
Isn't that insane?
Blows my mind.
I think, Jerry, you average what, about 1,100, 1,200
Oh,
per
12
battery
to
charge?
1,500, yeah.
Yep,
Dixie,
12
I
to
think it was the same,
1,500.
right?
Yes.
At points I was hitting 1,800. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that when you think mirrorless, you think, oh, how's the battery performance going to be? Again, pick it up and try it, and you'll see. While it is rated for 330 shots for the Z7, in real world scenarios, it can vary wildly because of the application, right?
Sure.
For example, for time lapse, you can shoot about 2,400 shots
Right.
before you have to swap the battery. For sports applications, you end up with well over 1,000. So it really varies, and the way you shoot
Right.
will definitely affect. So
Yeah, that's so important because the first time I picked up the camera, I wanted this to feel like my D850. So I set the viewfinder to viewfinder priority because there are 4 different modes that you can set. And it immediately, when I pulled my eye away, I didn't see the monitor come on, but it does come on when I hit menus and playback. Those things, I mean, I almost feel like that testing done, it's almost like turning every electrical item you have on in your house and expecting your bill to be low. But that's not the practical real world use, and I think you guys have proven that. So Dixie, let's look into your photos here and talk about the work that you did. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, we shot a lot of different fashion scenes, and for this particular shoot, something is really interesting. I love the color white, and I love bringing out that texture and 3-dimensionality that this camera is able to capture. So for me, I was blown away because when I was looking in that viewfinder and looking at the number of focus points, the focus points covered 90% of the viewfinder.
Right.
And so you're really able to move it to the edge. So I like to crop a lot of different times when I'm shooting where I have the model on one side of the frame, and I used to have to recompose, and then you might lose focus, especially if you're shooting at like f1.4. But with this particular camera, since it covers 90% of that viewfinder, it can make you more creative and also get tack sharp, beautiful images.
And how do you feel about the quality of this image? 'Cause
Oh
it's
my
beautiful.
goodness, it's
I
incredible.
remember zooming in, and it was just, there's so much detail. It's really unbelievable.
Insane.
And do we have an example of that
amazing.
here, or what's the next shot?
Absolutely. I did a couple of beauty shots as well, using, like you said, that pinpoint focus, that new focus capability of this camera, and you can really fine tune it and focus on the eye, the eyelashes. It's just incredible, the quality. I think I included a zoomed in image of that particular shot.
And,
so
and
you
as
can
you're
see
shooting,
that.
you're looking through the viewfinder. How long did it take you to get accustomed to the viewfinder and
Not long at
mirrorless?
all.
Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't had much time to play with the camera beforehand, so picking it up and shooting that day, it felt really natural. And I think that's really the beauty of Nikon and its history, is that all the cameras, the menus felt natural. Everything
Right.
was extremely user-friendly when I picked it up. So that really is helpful as a
I'd
photographer.
love to point something out on the previous photo. I don't know if you can bring it back up, but it's yet another thing that engineers were discussing when we were talking about the mount. And this is the 3-dimensionality of the lens, the quality that comes out of it. Which they explain is the combination of this extraordinary resolution. Again, imagine, if you will, you can shoot at the widest aperture.
Right.
Chromatic aberrations and all sorts of aberrations are fixed because of the proximity of the back lens element to the sensor, and it's a larger element at that, which they were quick to explain. It addresses the majority of aberrations, so you
Right.
can be shooting wide open. And when you have that combination of resolution across the frame,
Yes.
periphery and the center, with that beautiful bokeh, you end up with this three-dimensionality feel that is, I heard from other photographers that they're like, this is 1.8, but it doesn't feel like 1.8.
Exactly. We haven't changed the laws of physics, but
Yeah.
we've changed the way light moves,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And,
So
and
it's-
that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just saw a close-up, a
Yes.
zoomed-in shot. What do we have next?
Absolutely. This image,
I'm sorry, I love this image.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
stunning from the eyes to the design, the fashion, everything.
So fun. Yeah, these were actually 3D paper dresses that we had printed for this particular photo shoot. So we used it in a lot of different ways. So I had been shooting with mainly the 35 and the 50 all day.
Right.
And I was having so much fun with those lenses that I almost forgot to try out the adapter. Because the 50, just the bokeh that you experience is
Sure.
just incredible.
And so, I mean, I want to ask you this: when you did adapt to your favorite lenses, did it feel like there was an adapter on, or
It did not. There
Yeah.
was no light loss and there was no quality loss. It felt completely seamless
I
when I was
remember
shooting that.
we had a shoot at the ranch, and I pulled out the 500-5.6 to shoot some distant shots, and
Yeah.
it was a 500-5.6 that felt like a 7200 even on this camera.
It was
What do you have
stunning.
next for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So next we went to the abandoned building,
Oh,
and I was able to.
The ghost. We saw ghosts.
Yes, so I was able to try out the 9 frames per second, and was really blown away by how fast that you can, capture those images. You can almost capture images that you don't see in person when you're taking them because it's so ridiculously fast.
So it makes it great for action
Yeah.
and movement.
I mean, your compositions are, pushed to the, you have a lot of
the
negative
edge.
space, which is great compositionally, but
Yes.
I imagine that AF must have helped in the
Yes.
composition too.
Absolutely, you can keep going on those images. And then this one
is
was with a
stunning, too, the texture.
35.
Yeah, 35-1.8.
Yeah,
right?
the 35-1.8, but I feel like it looks more like a 35-1.4, 1.2. But you can still see that beautiful texture that this camera brings to life. I love using complementary colors. So between the yellow and the blue, they're complementary. It really kind of creates a nice natural vibrance and just beautiful look to the
You know
image.
what I loved about this shoot too? No air conditioner, so it was just like the 105-degree day the day before outside. That was great.
It's very hot in Texas. That's
I
one
love
of the
the way you
drawbacks.
work.
Oh my goodness. And then we ended up ending the day in this beautiful situation with the library with the next image.
Right.
And this is where I really wanted to test out the ISO capabilities.
Right.
And the fact that you can shoot heavy backlight and you don't get any kind of chromatic aberration or any kind of purple fringing within these files.
Yeah, and
So-
that was something that was just shocking to me, that I've actually seen comparison shots and the purple fringing is gone. You're shooting
Completely gone.
Yeah, you're shooting wide open, and it's just, again, you can't change the laws of physics. What the engineers have done here with this new mount is really, really remarkable. I know it sounds like, oh, it's 55 millimeter and 60 millimeter. It's just numbers. Trust me on this. When you see the resolution and you zoom in the corner and the center, it is totally different ballgame. It may be a 1.8. I know a lot of people have 50 1.8s, but when I saw those comparison shots, you have to kind of see it to believe it. It's
Sure.
it's
You
really
really do.
really remarkable.
And again, it really goes back to that notion. The engineers came together, and everything was built with intent,
Yep.
and an intent to make the quality better. And I would think as photographers, image quality's got to be #1 for you.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
So was that it for photos? Because I would say that last picture of yours was my favorite in your shoot, and the Queen. When you look at what Jerry and Dixie post later on, definitely look at Jerry and the Queen shots and what this young lady was inexperienced, and he took this inexperienced young lady and used that inexperience to make the kind of shots you wanted. But I can't wait for you to see the other stuff that these guys post online. So any other things? Let me hit you with one thing just really stood out to you, or can you answer that question?
For me, it's, I can't go backwards. I'm all in with the system. I can't go backwards. To be able to do what I can do in camera with my eye to the camera, I can't emphasize that enough.
Right.
The 90% coverage, all those things for me. And also, 2 years ago, I couldn't walk. I've got a herniated disc.
Right.
So this is a lifesaver. This could add 10 years to my career. And to be able to look forward to the upcoming 70-200, which I'm sure will be smaller, it's saved my back and added years to my career, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, the other thing too, and I do want to bring this up, is one thing in the design of this camera, we talk about compatibility, is the battery. It uses the same battery as D750, uses the same battery as D850, and how important is that to you?
Well, we use other devices, and then other companies release a system, and all of a sudden the batteries change, and we've wasted all this money. And the first words out of my mouth was, we use the same battery as the 750, the 850, and the 500, was, you've saved me $1,000.
Right. That's
And I'm
important.
like, so
Every photographer.
that's fantastic. And I think that was a credit to Nikon to basically say, you know what, we're going to support our user base.
That was well thought out
It
for
was.
you guys, and we listen to what you guys have to say, and to have to change that over. Dixie, what impacted you the most with
Gosh,
this camera?
the viewfinder. I mean, I've just been blown away by, even when shooting natural light or strobe, how you can instantly see things change when you change the ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, so you can create the image. And really and truly, it makes you a better photographer being able to see it in the viewfinder and able to capture those images.
Right. So during this segment, we've had people, you guys, write in with questions, and we want to take some time to address some of those questions. There was a question from John. I know we kind of brought this up already, but it's worth asking again. Is there any loss of image quality using the Z7 compared to the D850 and the same type lens? Who wants, Mark, you want to grab that?
Oh, sure. Yes. No, there is no loss of image quality. It operates the same exact way. There's no degradation of image quality when you use. I almost hesitate to call it an adapter because there's such ugly connotations with an adapter. I think everyone that has had to use an adapter, maybe the experience wasn't so fluid, but this is a Nikon adapter, right? We know the language of the F mount and the Z mount, and it communicates seamlessly, like beautiful communication between these two elements. So absolutely no degradation of image quality. In fact, you gain the VR that's built into the camera. So you gain 5 stops of VR, and that's a huge plus for, I know, for a lot of people, including myself.
Right.
Again, we all kind of, use the product too.
And those of you who are going to tune into the video segment, we're going to talk about the importance of that VR to hand-holding this camera in video. But Bruce asks a great question. Why is there only one card slot in this camera?
I know I've heard that question as well. And so the designers, when they're designing this product, they consider all the elements, right? So you have a smaller body. Considerations for compatibility with, for example, the battery and the XQD are really important because these systems are meant to be used with DSLRs and with the same lenses. So the compatibility with the ecosystem that Nikon has built is really, really important. XQD is extraordinarily reliable
and fast, right?
and super fast, right? And by the way, I forgot to mention this, but these cameras, both the Z6 and the Z7, will be compatible with CF Express, which is even faster.
That's huge.
Via a firmware update in the future, you'll have that compatibility. So I think that as a balanced package, one card is going to deliver. I have absolutely no concerns there. And when you consider the form factor, and it basically you have a D850 kind of shrunk down a little bit. It's like we miniaturized the technology. I think a lot of people will be very pleased. And I'll say this again, I know I've mentioned it a few times. You got to pick it up. Pick it up.
And
it's my test.
And see the quality. Yep.
Yes, it's my test for proving, basically, is the product going to perform? Pick it up.
I think this is an important question to ask you, Jerry. You're a wedding photographer, and one card slot in this camera. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, here's the thing. Would I appreciate 2 card slots? If there were 2 card slots, would I shoot one RAW and JPEG? The answer is yes. I'm not going to deny that. But here's the thing. I've been shooting for 25 years. I did not start 7 of my years of my career shooting with a dual 35mm canister camera. Didn't happen. You would courier the films to a company, they would do it, they would courier it back. There's a lot of variables then. I get it, we're living in new times and we want to be responsible, but think about this. My first digital camera was a Kodak DCS 760 after the F5 in 2001. It cost me 18,000 Australian dollars. You only had 1 gig cards. And the first digital camera to actually accommodate a CF and or SD card, 2 card slots, was in 2004. Right. Now, they were 1 gig cards in 2004. No one used them as one RAW, one JPEG. We all use it as overflow.
Right, because there's such limited space.
And really, only till 4 or 5 years ago, we only use it in overflow. Now, let me be brutally honest here. In my entire career, my digital career, maybe 700, 800 weddings shooting digitally, 2 cards have been questionable. both with CF, which are inherently got little pins and potential human issues human error, where you put them in the card reader, and when you read them, it can become an issue. But with the XQD, I have never experienced an issue. I have never experienced an issue with any of my friends who are photographers.
Right.
And if the camera sees it and sees a problem, the camera will tell you, I reject this card, there's an error.
Right.
Now, if you're shooting a wedding and you see an error, you're going to take it out and throw it away. You're not going to touch it ever again. So the fact is that my suggestion is shoot RAW, shoot JPEG on the same card. If you see the photograph in the back of the camera, it's there.
Right.
And if you ever had an issue, then it can always be retrieved and the JPEG is already there. But I'm telling you now that for me, I've spent most of my career with only one card. And
I think that's a great point, because I think in my history of shooting digital, it's really card readers that have been the issue, but you put the card back in the camera and it's fine. Dixie, same thing. Is one card slot?
I mean, for me, it's basically a non-issue. I shoot so much tethered, especially on set with fashion photography. You have a lot of people on set looking at a computer screen, so I'm instantly shooting to that computer and we instantly back it up. So it's really not a big issue. The only time I shoot to card is on location. And I've never in my whole career had an XQD card fail. So for me, it's not a big deal.
And if you gave me the choice between vibration reduction, the mount that makes beautiful lenses even better, the battery, and being able to accommodate the new form factor CF Express with the XQD form factor, and only one card, I would say no problem. If it was maybe compact flash, I would not be on this panel right now.
No, understood. And I think I want to bring Mark back into this, because there's a lot of things that people are talking about in these top line features, but the reality is there's new technologies built into this camera that I'm fascinated by, and I've already hooked my camera up to SnapBridge, and it's beautiful how I can move my images to the phone real quick and share them. But even more important, there's technology that's wireless within this camera. There's direct to PC connection, right? So you can download pictures. Mark, explain that.
Well, you can connect directly to your computer, and you could be wirelessly transmitting via Wi-Fi your RAW or JPEG images. So that's huge for studio work. Now, they are large files. Let's be frank here. They're 45 megapixel files. But having that option, that's something that our users have asked for a long time. And to be able to deliver it without the need for an accessory, I think is really, really great. So, and to your other point, there's a tremendous amount of technology here. I mean, silent shooting is another feature. I mean, I could go on, and video capabilities are absolutely tremendous in this product. So there's a lot condensed into a smaller body. And one thing that I learned from talking to the engineers is they have this focus on the balanced camera, the nuances of everything. They focus so much on the usability and reliability.
Not eliminating the past.
Yeah, and the weather sealing on this, for example, is one of those things that, of course, we have to have it, right? So all of this technology that we're building in, magnesium alloy construction, the weather sealing, all of it is, imagine a D850, but it's kind of miniaturized.
And it's funny, we get so locked into this, we have to wake up to the reality. We still have D850, we still have D5, we still have D750, 7500, F-mount Nikkor lenses. None of that's going away. And I think that's important, because you'll have options.
In the future, you'll have a knocked.
That's right.
0.95.
A 58 millimeter 0.95, which I think is very important too, because again, you bring up that critical focus and pinpoint focus, how important that is to depth of field. Now, Joni asks a question I'm going to answer. Will it have back button autofocus? Absolutely. I'm the one that raised my hand too and say I don't use back button autofocus, because I am the one that came up with the idea of using that to magnify my pictures pre-shooting and zooming in after the fact. So that will absolutely still be great. Although we haven't played much with it, Mark, I assume the Z6 would be great for sports photography?
Oh, of course. 12 frames a second.
Paul is asking, by the way?
Yeah, 12 frames a second is phenomenal. And 24 megapixel, I mean, it's a great resolution with that ISO performance. That is the camera I would pick up and use for sports photography, yeah.
Great. This is, I'm going to throw this out to you guys, but white balance compared to the D850, Richard would love to know what your experience was with white balance.
It's very consistent with the 850 in the sense that the colors that you get out of camera are amazing, but to be able to see it live, as Dixie mentioned, to see exposure live, to see all those things right there and then, it's almost superfluous actually pressing the play button because you're seeing exactly what you're looking at.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
So for me, it's actually made me a lot quicker and more efficient. And,
I totally understand.
As I say, I mean, Nikon have taken 101 years for this level of sophistication. And as I'm getting more experience as a photographer, it's matching my level of sophistication because with every shoot I get that little micro step better, but this is giving me a new path to it, which I'm really excited about.
And so you'll give me the back button AF to zoom in. I will give you how you inspired me and our colleague Lindsay Silverman out of the office to use my menu so religiously, because now my bottom button is my menu, and the most important things to me, the image size and silent mode and picture control are all there.
Yeah, I mean, I love, by the way that it renders skin tones. I think that's a really important fact about what we do is capturing the beautiful skin tones of the models that we shoot. And I was blown away by the colors, the vibrance. I would see things in these files that I literally couldn't see in person. So it was really, really interesting to be able to play with the images in post-production just to see where you can take them.
All right, yeah. There's so many more questions. I wish we could get to them all. I think this has been an amazing segment. You guys have brought so much insight into the world of mirrorless and Nikon. And thank you guys for tuning in. We will have another segment on video and the video capabilities of the camera, so please come back and join us. We're going to take a 15-minute break. All I can tell you is, you know, in 36 years in this company, I feel like my life has been rejuvenated as a photographer. I feel like I've adapted to this. I almost feel like this is my first baseball glove in Little League because I want to make this camera mine. I'm going to custom set it to my ways. I'm going to use the I button to bring up certain custom settings and controls, and you can adapt it almost any way you want. And the image quality is unbelievable. It's like nothing I've ever seen. Like you said, that nuance of, you just can't explain it, put your finger on it. But thank you guys for tuning in, and please, we'll take a little break, come back to watch the video segment next, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, mate.